So welcome everybody. This will take a second. There we go. We are the new kid on the block, as Tina mentioned. We just began trading on Monday. So 4 days in, that's an interesting position to be in terms of where we are in the market. The view that you see here is our project area in the Santa Eulalia District, just outside Chihuahua. And we're showing this basically at this point to show you that, like Bradford was pointing out for Parral, this is a pretty easy place to get around. Like everybody else, I'll be making forward-looking statements. Since we've been around 4 days, I don't think we have anything to make except forward-looking statements, but we look forward to turning some of these into history over time. The capital structure of the company is fairly simple. We have 73 million shares outstanding. We raised 6.5 million Canadian into the company as a private vehicle. We have a market cap based on this calculation of 14.6 million, and there's about 18 million warrants. So this was an RTO that was done, and you can see the breakdown. Management and board has a good stake in this, and very importantly, Mag Silver has 19.9 by virtue of the properties that we're working on coming from Mag. And you can consider these properties in some way the victim of Mag's success, that as Mag has focused on bringing Juanicipio into production, these are a distraction in many ways from what we're doing. We have a number of other high quality shareholders: Sprott Asset, Commodity Discovery Fund, Centrally Global, Terra Capital, Plethora, BIA, accounting for a total of about 60% of our shares. We have world-class technical expertise. I guess I'm supposed to blush because I'm talking about myself here. I'm the chief technical advisor. I've been pretty successful exploring for Mexico for silver for the last 30 years. Doug Kerwin, who is the former VP of exploration for Ivanhoe, who led the discovery of Oyu Tolgoi, is also an extremely successful exploration geologist. And on the board, we have Peter Jones, who's the former CEO of Hud Bay. As I mentioned, our balance sheet is strong. We've got 6.5 million in the bank. We've got institutional shareholders: Europe, Asia, North America, 19% Mag. Our two key properties are the Guigui deposit, or the Guigui project in Chihuahua, Mexico. This is in the Santa Eulalia District, which is the reason the city of Chihuahua exists. Santa Eulalia produced a little more than 50 million tons at about 10-ounce silver, 15% combined lead and zinc over about a 320-year continuous mining history. Mag has done a little drilling there. We got a couple of very interesting intercepts, including 8 meters of 4-ounce silver with and another of 0.4 with 109 grams. So we basically confirmed the continuation of mineralization on the structure coming out of the San Antonio mine. In Batopilas is our other project. This is Mexico's historic highest grade silver producer. It produced 300 million ounces of silver, primarily in the colonial era, at a grade of approximately 1.5 kilograms. Mag had some interesting results out there, including 1.7 meters of better than 2 kilograms silver. It's worth pointing out that what we're after is high-grade district-scale assets. And when we say high-grade, we're talking about something that would make money under, I want to say, the worst imaginable silver price, but if you think of your worst silver price, we'd like to be looking for something that's high enough grade in silver, not silver equivalent, to cover that. So essentially, and big enough so that it'll survive at least 2 market cycles. So when times are bad, you can sleep at night, and the rest of the time you're making a lot of money. And when things are really good, the way people are predicting, you're making a whole lot of money. So our objectives are to focus, on I got these pictures that are in the way of my text. Our principal focus is exploration of Guigui, and we expect to spend part of the next 6 months to define our drill targets, including mapping, reinterpretation of inherited geophysics, and some sampling. That's well underway. We did not slow down on that for COVID-19 because it was 2 geologists kicking rocks in the middle of nowhere by themselves. First drill campaign will be 10,000 meters. We're focusing on acquiring additional ground in the area, and we're putting together the data for Batopilas to get ready to drill that in 2021. We are also looking for JV opportunities for El Durazno, Matilda, and the Trudeau Gold property, which we got as a legacy from the RTO show. And we'll be seeking exploration alliances with mid-tier and major precious metals mining companies. What we're looking for is big. We're an exploration group. We recognize that there is a major difference between exploration and putting a big mine into production. So those kinds of exploration alliances we would expect to evolve into production alliances going forward. This is just a little bit of blowing my own horn. Like Doug, who is on the board, he and I have both been recognized for making major discoveries by receiving the PDAC Thayer Lindsley Award, which is the Oscar of exploration as far as success is concerned. Here's Doug. He's currently working primarily in the Orient, but he is responsible for significant resource expansions at the Cuale Silver mines in Jalisco and a number of other places. And he was the co-recipient of the Thayer Lindsley Award in 2004. So where are our projects? Our flagship property is Guigui, right here. This puts it about 350 kilometers due south of El Paso, Texas. The Batopilas district is out here in the canyon country of western Chihuahua, and Durazno and Matilda are all out in that country, essentially in the same area as the El Indio and Mulatos mines being operated by Agnico Eagle and Alamos Gold. So why do you go to Mexico for silver? It's actually very simple. Of the world's total historic production, so this is all the silver mined in human history, about 48 billion ounces of silver. Mexico has produced 12 billion of those ounces. So that's a quarter of all the silver ever mined anywhere has come from Mexico. So it is the best address that you could possibly ask for silver. But there's a more important feature than that, because Mexico not only has produced 25% of the world's silver, but it has produced more than that of the world's big silver. So if you're looking at billion ounce plus primary silver camps, so these are districts that have made most of their money off of silver, 8 out of the 14 deposits worldwide that have been mined are in Mexico. So it's where to go for silver, it's where to go for big silver, and all of these are high-grade silver deposits. So Mexico produces silver from 2 types of deposits primarily. One is epithermal veins, and the other is carbonate replacement deposits. And carbonate replacement deposits probably have their best expression anywhere in the world, with the exception of southern Arizona, where the Taylor deposit was found and purchased by South 32 2 years ago for 1.8 billion Canadian. These deposits are important because they're big, 10 to 150 million tons. They're high grade, 5 to 50 ounce per ton silver, high grade zinc, high grade lead, high grade copper. So if your grades of the base metals are high enough, your silver is effectively free. Depending on where you are in the system, they'll contain gold, germanium, indium, tungsten, sometimes PGEs. They typically have very low mining costs. They're metallurgically docile, so you can get the values out of the ore relatively easily. And most important in today's world, they have a minimal environmental footprint. So they tick all the boxes in terms of the kind of thing you would want to find for an underground mine. There's a belt of these deposits in Mexico defined by these little pink and magenta boxes. The magenta boxes are the big ones, and we call this the Mexican CRD belt. Santa Eulalia right here is the buckle on that belt. It's the biggest deposit of its style known in Mexico. It is shown in yellow here is the property position. This is right next to the San Antonio mine over here, operated by Grupo Mexico, and the historic West Camp, which consists of several mines operated by Grupo Mexico and a private Mexican company called Minamex. We are 12 or 22 kilometers east of the city of Chihuahua. It exists because it was the closest water to the mines of Santa Eulalia back during the Spanish colonial era. There are communities here, here, and over here, so there's a good workforce. Chihuahua Airport is 25 minutes away from the property. Daily flights from the US and various parts of Mexico. There's a mill right here at the San Antonio mine, belongs to Grupo Mexico, and potentially a toll milling deal could be there. They have a 2,000 ton capacity and produce substantially less than that. Between paved and hard surface roads, it's very easy to get around on this property. And that's the picture you can see behind me is the property. So Santa Eulalia has been a major producer, as I said, for more than 300 years. It's one of Mexico's chief silver and base metal producers. Historic production I mentioned earlier, but that means it's produced in excess of 500 million ounces of silver, along with 4 million tons of metallic lead and a comparable amount of metallic zinc, 3.5 million tons of zinc. So this is one of the world's largest carbonate replacement deposits. But based on our understanding of these deposits, half of the deposit is missing or remains to be found. And that's what we're looking for. And this is the exploration model that we use. It's one I've worked on developing for better than 35 years. A very similar model has resulted in major discoveries throughout the world. So this actually evolved from my work in the Santa Eulalia district, my PhD work, and essentially relates the mineralization to an intrusive body, magma body injected into a section of limestone that creates skarn, and then what we call replacement deposits that are in the form of mantos, which are like long flat sheets of mineralization, or chimneys, which are vertical tubes composed essentially of nothing but lead, zinc, silver, and iron sulfides. And these things are beautifully zoned from and continuous from wherever they stop back through these various zones all the way back to the central intrusion that drives the system. At Santa Eulalia, all of the production, the 500 million ounces of silver out of 50 million tons of ore, have all come from this part of the spectrum. We've got lots of indications that there's an intrusion somewhere in the system, but we haven't found it. So this is the half that remains to be found, assuming our model is correct. And this is the half where we would expect to see mineralization being substantially more consistent and susceptible or amenable to bulk underground mining technology. So I've been spending time trying to find this for more than 30 years. We've done some drilling and have had some interesting indications that we're heading in the right direction, but we haven't hit the big one yet. And with MAG, we did a lot of very sophisticated airborne geophysics, detailed mapping, satellite image analysis, and stuff, things of that sort, none of which was ever followed up on. So the drilling that was done at Santa Eulalia was done prior to the generation of all of this detailed information, and Reyna Silver is essentially picking up where we left off with MAG to find the source of this immense hydrothermal system. Now, there's a lot of background geology to all of this. Although the principal mineralization came from what's called the East Camp and the West Camp, lots of showings in the Middle Camp, there's a lot of geologic indicators that tell you that the source for this district is back in this area within the Guigui claim, and this Guigui 2 claim is part of it. So we're talking about things like ore body geometry, intrusive geometry, chemical vectors, even things as esoteric as sulfur isotopes, are all telling us the source is back in here, somewhere in this area. And what historic work you'll see has primarily been focused here and way over here. And our best targeting now is focused in this area right in here. So this is that target area. Like, here's the drilling that was done historically in the East Camp. Here's the drilling that was done out here, essentially south of the West Camp. This is the target. This is the hole that is closest to our current concept of where the target area is. And we intersected fluorite cemented breccias here, and we've recognized a number of additional fluorite cemented breccias in this area, which we think are bleeders coming off of that intrusive center that's down there. MAG did a total of just under 10,000 meters of drilling, and we were successful in finding the continuation of the East Camp, primarily in these holes here and here. But none of these holes out here, with the exception of hole 4, came up with what we expected. So we can demonstrate that the San Antonio continues into our property. Now we're working at proving that the West Camp does as well. So this is a composite long section of the mineralization in the West Camp. The first thing to point out is the scale. That's 4,000 meters from here to here, and this is about 1,200 meters vertically in terms of the vertical extent of mineralization as mined. So these ore bodies, this is actually a projection of a series of parallel ore bodies to a single plane. These individual ore bodies are like big sheets or linguini that were massive sulfides. The Spaniards found this in outcrop on the surface up here, and it was followed essentially from those outcrops horizontally for 4 kilometers and vertically for over a kilometer, a little over a kilometer. We see systematic changes of ore body morphology, mineralogy, structural controls, all of those that are telling us this all came from somewhere back in this direction. And so that's the direction we're going to be exploring. Just to put things into a little bit more scale, this ore body, which was mined from about 1926 until the late 60s, was 125 by 150 meters in plan and over 750 meters tall. That was pure massive sulfides. That was a substantial ore body by any standards. So right now our focus is to take all of the information that we have. This grid pattern shows a detailed high-quality geophysical survey that we flew for MAG, that was MAG and VTEM, and this was flown essentially, it's a complicated story, but it was flown while we were drilling and before the Mexican government geological survey put a giant regional claim in that tied up this property until 2015, which is part of the reason the project got parked. So right now we are reprocessing the geophysics. We're expanding it potentially into this area, and we're adding highly sophisticated satellite imagery on top of it to see if we can determine where in this area that I've pointed out before we think the center of the system is. So here are just some very gaudy pictures of the MAG and ZTEM that we've done, or ZTEM, depending on the part of the world that you're from. You don't have to be a geophysicist to recognize these extremely strong linear features that that are revealed in the underlying rocks by the magnetics. And these orientations are comparable and actually match the orientations that we see controlling mineralization up here in the West Camp and up here in the East Camp. So we're looking through pre-mineral but altered volcanics to see deep level structure that shows exactly the same orientations as what we see in the known parts of the district. So we're pretty excited about what that means. Again, emphasize, none of these have ever been drilled. I mean, if X marks the spot, that's one of the first places you want to put a drill hole. Hyperspectral imagery, we just did most recently last year. but this is based on aster imagery that was done back in the early 2000s. Aster imagery uses satellite data with a 60 by 60 meter resolution. And again, you don't have to be a geologist to recognize that this area right in here, which is this volcanic area covered by altered volcanics, there's something special going on there. And when the magicians get their hands on this imagery, they can come out with ratioing different bands and really highlighting the different and the strength of the alteration minerals that we see in this area. So we took that as the basis for doing a new hyperspectral survey done with the Worldview 3 platform. This was done in 2019. Instead of a 60 meter resolution, this has a 7.5 by 7.5 meter resolution. So it's 9 times better resolution. This allows us to plot the concentrations of individual alteration minerals. So we can see a zoning of higher temperature to lower temperature minerals. And there appears to be a good correlation between some of those areas, like right in here, with where we see the X, for example, that was shown in the geophysics. So we're pretty excited about the potential for drilling some of these. So our goal here is to put all of this together. We're well down the road for doing that, generate exploration, drilling targets, get it permitted, and get the thing rolling. Meantime, we've got the Batopilas district out in the mountains of Chihuahua. We're talking highest grade silver deposit ever mined in Mexico. This is 1 month's production from back in 1906. That's more than 300,000 ounces. The ore bodies there are comprised of crystalline native silver. They're like Brillo pads of crystallized silver. The red lines here are the historically produced veins. There was a plan back in the early 1900s to drive a tunnel underneath all of these and produce from below the Spanish era workings at high levels. This is as much of it as they ever got done, and they were able to mine an average of 2% silver for 40 years until they were shut down by the Mexican Revolution. So we did some work out there with MAG. We got some good holes. We came up with a lot of new ideas about the geologic nature of the district, the controls on mineralization. We did some shallow drilling based on that, and we came up with some really good targets that we liked. We were not able to drill because a big rainstorm came along and washed out the road. So the first thing to do is to fix that road and get back to work. These just show the highlights of some of our drilling. This can give you an idea of what some of the grades are that we cut. I mean, the gaudiest one, of course, was 20 centimeters of almost 20 kilos silver. That averaged with the material around it to 1.7 meter of 2.5 kilos. So this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about high grade that you can produce under any market conditions. This is what we now think the geology of this district looks like, and we understand the intrusion systems that are driving it. We have targets in these areas, and essentially we have to put this back on its feet and drill it. Durazno is another claim that we have out in the Sierra Madre. This is a very large, very raw property, but it has got a great address. It's surrounded by big names in the silver and gold mining district business. And so this is a strategically positioned property, and this is the kind of thing we would like to get into the hands of a partner.